This is episode 13 of DNA of Games, the podcast series dedicated to talking to other disabled and neurodiverse people working in the games industry just like myself, and to find out their stories and how they got into games. Before we begin the episode, make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast so that it shows that we reach more and more people that might need to hear these stories. Hi and welcome to another episode of DNA of Games, the podcast where we talk to disabled, neurodiverse people of the games industry. And joining me today is Tommy Millar, who is an artist slash animator. Although I'll let you do your own little introduction because it's probably a lot fancier than mine.
Hello, I'm Tommy Millar. I'm an artist slash animator, which is verbatim exactly what Chris just said. I'm an artist and animator in the games industry, and I've been kicking it about the industry for about 16 years, something like that. Working for big studios, little studios, TV studios, all sorts of studios, and myself as well.
I'm going to say, what about non-studios? So I guess you're an old hand in the industry, and that's it. Well, it's kind of odd for someone to really stick around for so long.
Yeah, just a glutton for punishment. I just love it. It's part of the issue for me is that as I get older and the techniques get more and more complicated, I get pushed more and more kind of towards the art janitor role, and I think that was, the specialisms dilute out. But strangely enough, people always need fundamentals. So even if you are old like me, even if you are ancient, if you're part of the furniture, you'll always find someone that needs a little bit of the fundamentals. So yeah, I'm all in work. I never really struggled too hard.
Oh, cool. And obviously you say you're an animator. Is it that a specific type of art, or do you tend to do a lot more 2D, 3D, or you just kind of double everything you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think if, like I said, art janitor was a bit of a joke that was laid on me that at one of the studios I used to work for, someone said I was an art janitor because I just picked up any of the little jobs that were going around, and it just kind of stuck. I'm just kind of generally there for whatever it needs to do. I've done UI art, 2D art, concept art, key art, animation, even it's mostly 2D stuff that I work in. Like I said, because I'm old, and to help you understand, I started off making Flash games with ActionScript, so I'm like This is kind of my kind of heyday almost. And see new games, just like young kids make, the new games kind of scare me a little. They're a bit too complicated, but yeah, I just do whatever needs to be done. And my most recent role was as a UI and concept artist for Need for Speed Unbound. I was about to say Underground. But Underground is also a game, so.
Underground 2, one of my faves.
Sorry, it's when you get to my age, words just kind of blend together, don't they?
I've just had the image of anybody who's a Zoomer, like listening in or watching, like when you said Flash games, to be like in Google, what is Flash game?
Yeah, it's kids. The internet used to be a thing that used to sit in your side, like in the side room in the hall, and used to go to the computer and used to get 20 minutes each on the internet, and that's what you used to do on it. Yeah. Sorry for alienating yet more of your listenership. But, yeah.
It's fine. It's educational. But yeah, it's nice that you've been able to have sort of quite a varied career. Would you say, you've kind of been able to do what you want by the sounds of it, and sort of really jump onto projects that really vary as well. Is that kind of important to you, like as an artist, to sort of have that variance rather than potentially making the same game over and over?
Yeah, I think I had wanted to specialize in the beginning, but because of necessity, necessity drives everything. And as I was kind of shoved from pillar to post, I just realised that the specialism wasn't going to happen. And in the end, it helped me get a bit more variety. I started off. I did my masters at Abertay University in Dundee, and that was one of the game development courses there. And I went straight into Rare, which was like a dream job. Like not usually that's usually like the end goal, but it was like right away for me.
Yeah.
I got to do some 3D art, I got to do some concept art, got to work with like the absolute masters of their craft, and it helped me realize it gave me a bit of humility. You
Mm.
become quite humble when you see people that are 10, 100, 1,000 times better than you at the things you want to do. And it just kind of hammered home how much I had to learn.
Mm.
And yeah, I just wanted to learn everything. I think everyone feels like that. Every artist wants to be the best, don't they? But
Yeah, I guess that's kind of an interesting one because you know uh, I did actually, when I went to university, I did actually start on like games art sort of side of degree. Yeah,
yeah,
just for I guess more for like 3D modeling and stuff like that. But even at university, I quickly realised, I'm just going to be far outstripped by, these people that, they already are like, I'm there like struggling to make a donut in 3ds Max, and then they're like, fully formed environments, and at the same time, like, what bloody hell? Like,
yeah. I'm totally in the same boat. I was not the top student in my class at all. It was, I think, my one of my lecturers, when they were doing the interviews for the placements in the university, they asked us to draw a bicycle. That was it. They had us all, about 30 of us, all. It was like a group interview thing. And they said, draw a bicycle. And they gave us 30 seconds to draw a bicycle. Now, a bike in 30 seconds is quite difficult to do. But instead of drawing a bike like everyone else, I drew like a sci-fi bike that was like hover and it had stuff in it. And my lecturer said it was at that point that I realized that you weren't playing by the rules. You just wanted to do your own thing. And it kind of carried on throughout my whole career. It's just
mm.
I like to do things kind of a bit differently, and maybe that's why I don't always fit into a specialism. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like to I guess it's a weird one. Like especially when you start sort of clocking in the years in the industry, to sort of look back and go, oh, that just kind of explains sort of where I'm at now. It's kind of like it's like yeah, I was always sort of doing my own thing, or marching the beat of my
Yeah.
own drum. And do you sort of see that like now a lot more, like sort of looking back?
Oh yeah. About halfway through my many many years doing what I do, I was working at Ubisoft Reflections, and they gave me a small budget to work on my own game, which was another big dream. But they only really gave it was just me and one programmer pretty much to
Yeah.
build the whole thing. And the game was called Mickey Styes Has Sticky Eyes. It was about a germ. I designed this game about a germ, and it was very weird. Anyway, the game didn't get made in the end because they scrapped that department. But it made me realize this is real fun. Like making my own game is amazing. So that same programmer and another person and myself, we left to form our own kind of little studio for a
Oh.
short while. And we made a game called Cake Bash, which is a party game about cakes. They want
Totally
to,
remember
they
that.
want to be as
Yeah.
delicious as possible. They want to be as delicious as possible so that people will want to buy them. But in order to out, outfox their competitors, they have to make the competitors disgusting. So it's like a fighting party game, and we made that, and it did pretty well. So yeah, it has informed. I
I
just
have
wanted to do
played
my
it,
own thing.
and
Oh yeah, have you?
I'm trying to warn people of this game because, like, if you want pigeon-induced trauma, play this game.
You would see the very first concept sketch I did for that game. It was just an arena with a dispenser that dispenses icing and oil and a pigeon over the top, and it just said, "Make yourself tasty. Don't be eaten by pigeon. Don't be covered in oil." And that was it. So the pigeon made it all the way to the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, you just when you got a good idea, it's gonna stick. But yeah,
But
that's the one thing that sticks out to me when from playing Cake Bash was the bloody pigeon coming in.
um, that, and that was one of the most fun things to animate as well, was the pigeon. I'm not really a great 3D animator, but the pigeon just lends itself to a lot of character just because it's got like a really linear kind of emotion to it.
Hmm.
It's fun.
I'm sorry for distracting you from your thoughts there, but yeah, you were saying about like doing Cake Bash and actually, sort of getting that good reception, and how that sort of lead more into like wanting to do your own thing or sort of want to work on other projects. How did that sort of formed your career from obviously having Cake Bash made?
Well, after that, I've kind of been more contract based. I think before I was more interested in kind of locking into a studio and making a career that way. But getting to do my own thing and get to make my own games, it made me realize that I, I would rather just stick to shorter contracts and do the taster menu thing, like try things. So I went to EA for it was just a year there. I've been writing. I've been a guest contributor for What Culture. They do game stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing some animation for Arcadum, who do a lot of online casino games and things. I'm
Okay.
doing. I've been making some animated playing cards for Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Um, uh,
So really
and
varied.
yeah, and there's a TV pilot for Channel 5, which we're just, I think it's almost out of NDA like next week, so I can't really say much about it. But yeah, it's been as the kids say, it's been wild. It's been mad to get a bit of everything and enjoy it the whole way through. I haven't done anything in the past 2 years that I didn't enjoy, which is really saying something
Yeah,
because
it really is. Like, I think that's the thing of actually. Well, I think when you first start in the industry, you're kind of just trying to grab onto like the biggest thing that you can, and
that's
whether that
yeah,
whether you actually like it or not, and
yeah,
to actually fall into something that you actually generally enjoy and you sort of have that actual passion for is sometimes completely different. It takes people a while to get there.
yeah. You'll know yourself. I mean, it's the prestige stuff. When you say to people, "Oh, I work for this," and they're like, and I went, and I work for Rare and EA. Oh, I know them. Oh, I know them. And it's just you get a nice feeling about prestige stuff. Maybe it's not your favorite job, but because it was such a big name, big IPs, you
Yeah.
you tend to get you tend to think, oh, maybe I should have just stuck with the big company and worked for them for the rest of my living years. But I don't know if I would have been happier that way. And I'm pretty sure most people that are in the industry would agree. Yourself included. Working for the biggest company doesn't always mean the happiest.
Yeah.
Although working for EA just recently, I was pleasantly surprised by how the Criterion is, by how great Criterion was and how nice they all were. Um, but yeah, it's been good so far. My life has been nice so far with a few asterisks, but yeah,
Onwards and upwards, eh?
yeah,
um, I'm interested to know, like, kind of like I always sort of ask guests, sort of why games, sort of what sort of, if you can sort of go back beyond 16 years. I just kind of like, actually that's all, earlier in your life when you actually go and actually I kind of really want to get into games. I really want to, make art in games. I want to, do
um,
be creative around that space.
well, you're getting the wee hamster in his wheel in my head spinning a wee bit because we're going back. We're going back. I feel like we should be doing a flashback right now. We're going back quite far. No, but it was. I'm going to alienate again. I played games on the green screen Amstrad, which was like a big old horrible machine with a tape deck on it, and it used to you put a cassette tape in there, and it would scream at you for 20 minutes whilst it loaded the game. And I mean, it was kind of this horrible screech from the tape deck as it loaded your game, and sometimes it would just fail. It would just say, "By the way, the game didn't load. Do you want to try again?" It was hellish. And then I remember walking past a shop called Dixon's one day, and in the window there was Sonic the Hedgehog there, and I thought, this is magic. This is some kind of magic on the screen because I was so used to games that was like one screen at a time, like maybe one frame of animation in addition to the sprite, and then there was this all this stuff happening all at once. And I said, I have to play it. I have to play it. And when I played Sonic, I was like agog. I just had this kind of shudder in my tummy, and I went, I need to this. I want to do this. I want to make this. And I remember it was a few years later, but I said to my dad, if I can make someone feel the way that I felt about playing Sonic, any just one person, that's my career made. I'm happy, that's me. So yeah, it'd probably be then. It'd probably be that kind of transition from playing these, and no disrespect to the Amstrad because I had good fun, but going from these kind of really rudimentary, basic green one color games to playing Sonic, which was like zooming, super speed, all these colors and noises, and it was brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, like it's yeah. I mean, like, I've sort of have sort of similar things. I don't think not all of that though. But like that sort of transition from like that sort of very rudimentary games graphics and stuff like and seeing it sort of evolve over like these several games generations that we've been a part of now.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing. It's like people, I guess, young people now like playing games that are really like amazing graphics and stuff like that. It always makes me wonder like if they're inspired by games now, what they will be seeing in their sort of like heyday.
I'm especially when it comes to things like VR and AR. It's technology that's in its infancy, and it still stuns me. I got when I put on a VR headset for the first time and I played, I think it was Job Simulator. I was like, whoa, this is it. This is the next step. I didn't. I don't put on the VR headset every day because it's a bit much. But it was that initial feeling of like this is, we are really evolving the craft here.
I know, even the metaverse now has legs. Ooh.
Now I heard something about the legs not being real. It's such a bizarre thing to have a headline about, but the legs aren't real was the headline. This is, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Technology, hey, we're we're living in the future.
In the future, we'll have real legs. There we go. Really pushing it.
Yeah, it's just would oh god, my mind going completely blank there. Thinking of legs, but yeah, it's just like I guess were you sort of a creative young person / child? Were you always sort of going to be more on the art route of like sort of when you sort of like were inspired by Sonic? Was it like yeah, I'm going to start doodling, drawing, and that's the path I'm going down?
Yeah. Yeah. I think most artists that I've spoken to have the same kind of story that we're odd little children that would isolate ourselves from the rest of humanity, just hide in our caves and hiss at people whilst we scribbled on a piece of paper. But yeah, it's things like my my gran said that I didn't ever want toys. I wanted to go into a stationery shop and get paper fasteners. Do you know these little butterfly paper fasteners that open out?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you used to just cut cereal boxes and make little robots out of them and things. Because you always wanted to make things that moved, or and I just thought that was normal until she told me when I was an adult, you were a weird little boy. You're weird. You're such a weird little boy. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Gran. It's like that was happy.
It's like, oh, it's just like, you're either going to be creative or a serial killer. Thank God you chose the right way.
They're not mutually exclusive, Gran. Don't.
But, this is where we sort of move on to our second part of the podcast, where we sort of, I guess, talk more about sort of your identity with like disability, neurodiversity. I don't know if you mind sort of sharing with the listeners / viewers, like sort of how you identify. or slash sort of like conditions that you live with?
I'm happy to. So I was born with a pituitary. Apparently, one of my issues I can't speak right. Pituitary issue where my brain couldn't produce growth hormone. So I went through mechanically induced puberty, which sounds very fancy, but it just means that I had medicine to make my bones stretch very quickly. And that gave me brittle bone disease. So I've been living with brittle bone disease all my life, pretty much since I was about 14. And it doesn't really pose a huge issue to me all the time. It's just I have to be very careful about how much I move, how I move. Things like twisted motions can cause fractures and things. And unfortunately, kind of towards the middle of my career, I developed some mental issues as well, which exacerbated the underlying conditions.
Yeah.
And but I can discuss that more if you'd like, or if it's up to you. Would you want?
Well, let's just first talk about sort of, I guess, brittle bone, because I guess maybe myself included, is kind of like a lot of people will have that, I guess, stereotypical image in their head of like, almost having like, glass bones or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
like, that sort of like, oh no, if I, give you a high five, your hand's going to go back all the way back, sort of thing.
Yeah, I did. I have made a joke that I'm like Wolverine if Wolverine didn't have adamantium but had breadsticks instead, or like Maltesers. The inside of Maltesers. Well,
Oh
anyway,
god.
I make it sound really dramatic, but it's not as bad as all that. It just means that I have increased fracture risk, and sometimes the surrounding tissues around my bones, especially around joints and things, so shoulders and knees, hips and things, they can inflame.
Okay.
And that doesn't sound like it would be a big issue for games development, because you think you're not going to be running, I'm not going to be rugby tackling anyone, I'm not going to be doing somersaults. But how that causes issues is if, for example, I've done a wee bit too much the previous day, and then my hand swells up to twice the size, and then
Yeah.
I can't use the mouse or a stylus. And these things are just like, I have to make special accommodations for them, especially kind of around my work days.
Yeah.
And I have had things like perhaps I might need to only work 4 days a week because I'll have to go in for a calcification, which is a special kind of treatment to make sure my bones are fine and stuff. Um, these are things that I just find normal, but other people are like, "Oh, that." So what do you have to do? Do you have to kind of wrap yourself in cotton wool? I'm like, no. I can still walk around. I can still do everything. I can't really run. I'm not really allowed to do anything that's impact. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can't. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do any UFC, uh, any 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 sparring whilst we're here. But no,
Yeah, you obviously touched on there about like, how it impacts that sort of the day to day, and I guess that sort of thought of like people are thinking, oh my god, how do you do this? And like you say, like it's kind of like that, making your allowances for yourself and sort of recognizing kind of what you can do. Obviously, you as an artist, you sort of for 16 years in the game in the business. I mean, are you more aware now about like kind of like right? What you can do and sort of how it affects your day to day.
yeah, it's. I think it's now only limiting when I'm a bit careless, and because like I said, it's something that I've had for as long as I can remember now. So I just have to kind of make sure that I don't push things too hard. If I'm going somewhere, I have to make sure that I don't do too much, because the next day might be a write off. These kind of things you got to be a bit careful about them. And uh, to help you understand one of the maddest ways I've ever broken a bone, which is going to sound crazy, is when you sit down in an armchair, you don't think, but you usually put your weight on both your arms, don't you, to get down into the chair, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I broke my arm doing that, and everyone's like, "How did you manage to splinter your arm so badly?" And I'm like, sitting in a chair." And they're like, "Your arm." how to do? But yeah, it's dumb things like that that I just do, and sometimes I'll just break a pinky leaning too hard, or it's just
Yeah.
that- that.
You got very like, here's what it is attitude. It's kind of like, yeah, not to cry about it. It's just like kind of like it's kind of a funny story now. Broke my arm sitting down.
I'm never going to be a champion Muay Thai kickboxer or whatever. I just have to accept these things. But art, we can deal with art. We just got to be a bit careful. Things like mountain climbing, maybe not.
We'll just strap you at the back of someone else.
Yeah, yeah, like Chewbacca with C-3PO. Like that, just drag me around. Yeah.
Just do there. You can just be giving witty comments and narrating the journey.
Moaning and sarcasm, that's my forte. I'm coming for it.
I guess I'm kind of interested to know, obviously, because you said like you got from it was pretty much from being a teenager to sort of for your life, and that sort of going from education to thinking about jobs and careers. Did you ever think, if this is gonna impact my chances to getting into work and actually having a career that I want in games, or did you sort of feel like, nah, I'm just gonna do it anyway?
Yeah. Well, really, the issues were pretty manageable, like up until my kind of mid-20s, and that was when I started working for Reflections, which was pre Ubisoft Reflections. It was just Reflections, and then Ubisoft took them over.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that was just around about the time when the industry went through a massive crash. I think it was about 2009, 2010, something like that. And I went from being this hot shot, like making all the money and doing really well, and there was no jobs. There were no jobs anywhere. And I remember going for interviews, and there were like 30 people waiting for the same job interview. Sorry, I'm getting to something. I'm not off on a tangent. I remember there was one job for Reflections, and it was just a graduate UI artist.
Yeah.
And I'd been working for many years by this point, and I went for the job anyway because I thought a job is better than no job, and we can fight for it. And they said to me in the interview, "You're overqualified for this," and I went, "Oh, shut up, to give me a big head." But they said, "No, you'll rise through the ranks quickly. You'll do fine. Just make sure that you show people what you can do, and then you'll jump up and pay grades and everything. No bother." So I thought, "Oh, brilliant, no bother." And they said, "You're hired here, take the job." And I don't it was I think it was £16,500, which is really, really quite low for a AAA art job. And it came with like a graduate tag, even though I was far from a graduate. And so I started overworking. I started working really, really hard. I started staying for like 13 hours a day. Started missing out meals. I started just working. And what naturally happens when you lose a lot of weight is you lose a lot of bone mass. And unintentionally, what I found was I'd actually become anorexic, and I'd also worsened my osteoporosis. So it went from grade 2 to a grade 3, which is really, really bad, really bad. And that's when I found things started to fall apart. I didn't have enough muscle mass to kind of stop the fractures from happening and things. And it was only after that point that I noticed this is really going to impact me. It's really going to be a problem. And the unfortunate thing about bone mass is very, very hard to get it back once it's gone.
Okay.
So, initially, I didn't think about it too much because I had managed it with medication and just not doing front flips.
Yeah.
Whereas after that point, I found that I was getting fractures really easily, and I had to put on more weight, and it was putting more strain on my now very weak bones. So I just had to be every job that I took, I had to be really, really careful about. And and I was off a lot more, and it was just a bit of a rough time. But everyone goes through these rough times, and they're learning experiences, aren't they? So you got to move on.
Yeah, like I guess that's a sort of I guess a hard truth sometimes when you have conditions is that you can, if you put yourself through the ringer like you've done there, the sort of demand of the industry, you can make yourself worse. You can
Mm.
aggravate yourself, through trying to do well in your career. And I guess it's that sort of horrible balance of like how trying to get to a place in my career where I can then sort of have a better work-life balance, or should I be listening to my body more? And it's sort
Well,
of
yeah, that's a really. I mean, what you're alluding to is that the level of competition in the games industry, it's difficult for people with conditions already, because I was so eager to prove myself, and that I was basically just doing what everyone else was doing in that studio at the time. There was no like overt like you must fight this person to be the best in the studio. Nobody said that. No one had a gun to our heads. But there's all this kind of jeering that goes on, like, oh, you're going home already, and it's only 7 o'clock at night, and these kind of things. You just want to fit in. You just want to be able to kind of toe the line and be as good as everyone else. You don't realize that your body deteriorates faster than everyone else's. So yeah, I maybe had the blinkers on, and I just thought, if they can do it, I can do it too, and you can't. You know, it's a very very sobering truth that maybe you can't do everything that everyone else can, but I think some people like myself, you have to go through it to realize that you have to be slapped across the head and go, no, 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 they can do it, you can't. It's it's sad but true.
I guess do you have then sort of advice for like sort of junior level, or people wanting to break into the industry who might have similar conditions, or conditions like you say that if you don't manage you can make it a lot worse, sort of thing. What would you say to them, as it's still a competitive industry, it still kind of has that flavour of battling each other for security?
Yeah, I think, well, without relying on tropes and cliches and things, like I did say to you, I learned that good enough is good enough, and I do think I used to think that's the sort of thing that the lazy people said, oh, good enough is good enough just means you're not pushing yourself. Well, what I did learn is that progression is not, it's not a linear thing. You progress in so many ways other than just this race to the top, because if you're always striving for great, you never have contentedness of self, right? If you're always pushing yourself to find this kind of trophy, you never find contentedness in the moment. Um, so if anyone was eager to kind of push themselves beyond, just kind of ask why. Like ask why you want to push yourself. Are you just not happy the way you are just now? And I think a lot of people aren't, but they just don't know why. Um, which is why I think just try to be content with now. If you're not content with now, you'll never be happy with if you're like the lead artist, you'll never be happy as the lead artist. You want to be double lead, mega lead, like turbo lead artist. Yeah, it's it's a very difficult thing to accept that good enough is good enough, and that if you're happy right this second, I sound like a hippie, but I'm not. If you're happy right now, you will be happy no matter what grade you are at.
I think all the corporates at AAA are like, write that down, mega lead. We've got another level that we can put them on. But yeah, you're right. It is. I think it's a hard thing to do, especially when you're sort of new into the either working world or the industry itself. Like it's hard to realize that. And like you say, I think it's that example that you said. Sort of sometimes you just have to work through it yourself. But it's kind of like it doesn't stop you from listening to the advice around you, sort of thing.
Yeah,
Other people have the experience, and you know, it's like you don't have to put yourself through the same experience just to get the experience. You know, you can just learn off other people's.
Yeah. And if you want to make a name for yourself, you don't want the name to make for yourself as that guy that made himself incredibly ill. You know, that really frail guy that burnt himself out. That's not a legacy. You know, this you don't want that to be the way people remember you or the way people think about you. But
It's Tommy's legacy.
especially
Back off.
if you, I mean, if you're in that position where you do have a condition that could quite easily snowball and avalanche out of control, it's you just have to be especially aware that it's very easy, it's very addictive to get into this flow of, oh, I only did 1 hour extra last week. I'll do 2 hours extra this week. I'll show them. I'll be the best in this. You know, it's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. I'm sure, and like you said, I'm sure the corporate world would be like, no, we need them to do more unpaid labor. But it's your well-being is the most important thing. And let me just assure you that waking up every morning with an inflamed spine and stuff, it reminds you quite a lot that maybe you shouldn't have done that 13-hour day like 10 years ago. You know, you shouldn't have done that. But yes, but I don't want it to sound too negative. It's not like one.
Well, I guess you know, sort of the final question for like sort of this section, you know, it'd be good of like, you know, are you happier now where you are, you know, in terms of like obviously going through all that and you know having that, you know, sort of more negative experience, like you know, and it's kind of framed how you work now and you know what you want out of life now. Is it a lot better?
Yeah, I want to somehow transfer my older man mind into my younger man body and then just have the best of both worlds. I think it took a lot of trial and error to understand and accept who I am. But I do think where I am in my career and who I am as a person, I'm much better off now. I just wish I was a bit more mobile. Like I wish I could do more. I wish I hadn't kind of pushed things a bit too hard in pursuit of greatness. Um, I am a walking cliche now, and that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. But yeah,
We'll just sit you
I
in the
think that,
corner of the junior art room and you can just point at them and go, this could happen to you!
yeah, look at the monstrosity that stands before you. What will happen to you? Yeah, uh, yeah. I don't know. It's a very tricky question. Like, how happy are you in your life? Do you wish you'd been better? Do you wish you could have been greater? I mean, I think acceptance is at the heart of it, really. You just got to accept uh, your limitations, who you are, and be happy what you're doing. If you have that, then you're golden, right? That's
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's it, you know, exactly
it's
it.
all those times in this prayer circle and those times because you've joined Happy Hour. But
And the thing though,
it's
like sometimes it's as simple as that, like you know, just a sort of like, but some, you know, I think sometimes that message needs to be reiterated and put out there to sort of help people sort of, you know, listen,
yeah,
be able to sort of have enough time to listen.
yeah, and like I said, just especially if you're quite susceptible to being drawn into these things, if you have things like if you've got an addictive personality, if you're quite if you have a low self-esteem, if you have a physical condition that could easily get worse, these are all things that people don't think about, but especially in the games industry or another industry where there's the level of kind of, I don't want to say covert competitiveness, you know, like that. It's an insidious kind of competition where everyone's framed as a family. We're all family here. We're all working towards the same goal. But then, you know, sneakily, people might do a bit more and a bit more. And oh, did you do that? Oh, that's fine. I suppose we'll work towards the brilliant, and you can just work towards the good there. It's these little things that kind of play on your mind, and
Yeah.
I'll do a bit more. I'll do a bit more. So yeah, just keep an eye on it.
I was like, just keep an eye on it, and that's the Tommy device of the day.
That's gonna be my epitaph. Just keep an eye on it, mate. Yeah.
Um, for the last section of the podcast, it's kind of one of my favourite because it's basically all about games, and it's where I ask you, kind of like if what's kind of like the standout moment in games for you. I know it's your awakening with Sonic is probably one of them, but if I ask you sort of like what your favourite gaming moment is, or it's like an accessibility moment, etc. Like what would you draw upon? What's the first thing that you go, yeah, this game is kind of like the thing that I always scream about.
Yeah. It's such a tough one. I think obviously the Sonic thing. But hands down one of my favorite things, and once again it's more career kind of focused as opposed to just a singular game moment. But it was when Cake Bash had been out for a couple of months, and got a couple of bits of posting, and I thought it was going to be something kind of negative. I was just automatically assumed because you endure so many doxings and hate mail and all that through all the years, and it came through, and it was a bit of fan mail from a bunch of kids who had drawn all the characters, and then they had said they'd written, "This is our favorite game in the world, and these are our favorite characters," and they'd drawn, and I have them to this day. Like, I've got them framed, pictures of Cake Bash that they'd done, and later on that Halloween they sent us pictures of them dressed up in their Halloween costumes that was, and my heart, my Grinch heart swelled. I don't think anything will match that. That's probably one of the best things ever. I'm getting tearing up. It was so good. And see back what I said to you before about if I could make someone feel that way, that maybe that was that. Maybe that was them.
Oh,
and yeah, I just thought, if I could make a game, if something could come out of my head and be so important to these kids that they do nothing but talk about Cake Bash, they do nothing but dress up at Cake Bash, that's it made it worth it. It made all the trials of that 3 years of building that game worth it. And I don't know if, like I said, I don't think that'll be very easy to beat. I don't know. I think I'm just a bit of a game nerd, really. I play games all the time. I've got so many tattoos of game characters all over me. It's just so ingrained in my being that it's asking me for one thing to stand
Well,
out is like,
I'll make it easier. Like, what was the first character you put on your body then?
that'd be Sonic. I've got Sonic. Wait, I'm gonna show you over the camera. Is the podcast gonna be visual or just audio? Because
both. Well, it depends where they are, but it's both.
So I've got Sonic here
On your forearm, yeah.
Sonic, yeah. I got Choo Choo Rocket. I got Link there. I got Beautiful Joe there.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful Joe. And as a little nod to my condition, which my mum didn't like, but I wanted, the game Shadow of the Colossus. I love that game.
Yeah.
One of the biggest breaks I had on my arm was here, so this is my weak point. Right?
With the urge to stab it with a sword. It's big.
So if ever we encounter, like, say, a Syrian hamster with a toothpick and it wants to kill me, it just needs to climb up to here and stab a couple of times and run. I'm done.
There's a small rodent to climb up your forearm. You just say, "Oh, cute. Hang on a minute."
but yeah, I just gaming is so important to me, as I'm sure it is important to everyone that listens to this and to yourself, that it's very difficult. It's like asking you what your favorite day was ever. If you've had a lot of nice days, then it's difficult. But yeah, I think that's it. I think those kids, that fan mail, and those drawings and seeing them in their Halloween costumes, I'm beaming thinking about it. It makes me happy.
No, I love it because, like, it's kind of like somebody was sort of saying to me about like how do you sort of measure success, and it's kind of like mainly how right think of like, because obviously with many cats, we're currently developing our own game, and me and Harriet, and it's kind of like, well, what's success for that game then for us? Is it making the billions of pounds and become an evil corporation, or is it like have that potentially a life-changing like moment for somebody that you might inspire those kids to go into games themselves. You might have done that through Cake Bash, and it's kind of like that's an amazing bit of success.
Yeah, I'm guilty of kind of misappropriating, misinterpreting what success means, and I used to think it was. I used to think it was having a huge house and a lot of money and having a really good title and working on the best and biggest games in the world. Whereas now, I live I live in a big old caravan by the sea. I think my my success is for me anyway is just measured by how content my lifestyle how content I can be via my lifestyle, and how working in the games industry can facilitate my happiness overall. Uh, and the way I do that is by meeting new people, taking new jobs that are a bit different, a bit out there, that pique my interest, and to remember that it's even though it is an industry and it's all consuming sometimes, they are jobs. They are just jobs. They don't need to rule your whole life. So yeah, it's balancing all things, moderation, happiness, and God, I really do sound like a life coach, don't I?
You sound like a dev that's been around for a while. I don't think they've all got that, the old wise man tale. It's like, come gather around, children, and I will tell you a tale of old. Don't burn yourself out.
I got plenty of stories, but you'd be here all day. So
No, it's like thank you for like sharing your story, and I really appreciate it. I know the listeners will appreciate it as well, and kind of slipping in some good advice there if the listeners haven't realised, and yeah, it's good to sort of, and it's always refreshing to hear like someone like you say yourself saying like kind of the things that you've gone through, and then to sort of where you are now, and that sort of realization about what not like what could have done differently, but like how to be happy and content now is always important. I think it's like sort of pulling people away from that like competitiveness of the industry to
yeah,
it's life is more than, like you say, more than just your job,
yeah.
and I think that's important. If people want to follow you on whether that's Twitter or whatever, do you have any handles that you're willing to give out?
Yeah. On Twitter, I'm at Total Mimo Tweets. So it's TOTO MIMO tweet. That's me. And my social security number is no.
Let me get a pen. I need to write that down.
Yeah. One thing I didn't say, and I do definitely want to say, is that the people make it. My time in the industry wouldn't have been anything without amazing people that I worked with. I'm always humbled by the talent of the people that I work with, and if whereas before I, I could see their artwork, I could see their work, and all I wanted to do was to be as good as or better than them. Now all I do is I look at them and I just go, "Wow, you guys are all amazing." Honestly, that's all I care about now is just looking at all the talent and going, "Well done, folks. You're top notch." If you can do that too, if anyone can do that too, like just look at someone with astonishing skill and just think, I'm lucky that I get to work with them because they're badass. If you can think that instead of, "Aw, I'm rubbish and they're great," you've cracked it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly that. Again, I thank you for your time.
It's been absolutely my pleasure, Chris. You're ace. It is. Everyone listen. Isn't Chris amazing? Yeah.
Stone
I'm waiting
silence.
for an answer. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
If anything like my producer meetings of her kind, it'll be just silence. I'm like, well, I guess you all agree then. But yeah, thank you for your time. As always, new episodes of TNA Game, they're coming out every so often. I take a little bit of break if you haven't been aware, but yeah, keep coming back because there's always new people to talk about their experiences with the industry and disability and neurodiversity. So keep coming back.
Thanks again for joining us this week, and make sure you keep on coming back as we'll speak to more and more disabled and neurodiverse people in the industry.